House Appropriations Subcommittee on School Aid and Department of Education will come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Kelly.
Here.
Representative Jenkins-Arno. Representative Markkinen.
Here.
Representative Beeson. Representative Borton. Representative Glanville. Representative Steckloff.
Present, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Representative Glanville.
Present.
Representative Steckloff. You do not have a quorum.
Okay, Representative, can we approve minutes? Oh, we do have.
Representative Beeson. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Glanville, Minority Vice Chair, makes a motion to approve minutes of May 13th. Seeing that no objection, minutes are approved. Good morning. We have with us today OPTIMISE. We have Kathy Fortino, Project Manager of OPTIMISE, and Lori Vanderploeg, Project Consultant for OPTIMISE. Excuse the light attendance today. We have, I think we will have Representative Steckloff return before we're done, and a couple of the other members are out for other meetings, but we have, ready to listen to your presentation, so take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly and committee. We appreciate an opportunity to be here just to give you a very brief overview of the work that we are commissioned to do on your behalf. I'm Lori Vanderploeg. I'm actually the project consultant or the voice for OPTIMISE. And just a little bit about yourself. We jokingly said to Representative Kelly when we met with him that between Kathy and I, we're about 100 years of experience in special education. So we bring a depth of knowledge and experience to the table with you today. I had many years as a special education teacher, spent about 25 years as a special education administrator. 18 of those years were at Kent ISD, where I was the director of special education. And then I had the honor and privilege of being appointed to be the director of the Office of Special Education Programs with the U.S. Department of Education. So I moved to D.C. And represented 7.5 million individuals with disabilities across the nation, where the Attract, Prepare, and Retain was my primary initiative. Also taught at Grand Valley State University, preparing all the special ed administrators in the state of Michigan. And most recently, I work in a DC office with a very large special education membership organization. We have about 35,000 members. But I spend the majority of my time on the OPTIMISE work and really look forward to giving you an update today. Kathy?
I know you can't really believe we're old enough, right? That's what we always think, but probably true. Kathy Fortino, I'm the project manager for OPTIMISE. Have had a long career in special education, teacher, consultant, special ed administrator, retired as the associate superintendent at Muskegon ISD a few years ago, and since that time have done some consulting work, complaint investigations for the Michigan Department of Ed, program evaluations for several ISDs have contracted with me to evaluate their special ed programs in their county. And then I started, again, working with Lori. We've been colleagues for a very long time, and started working with her as the project manager for OPTIMISE, which we are very excited to tell you about. Very, very wonderful culminating activity in my career. I do think when we're done, this will be done. So I think 50-some years we'll probably do it. Anyway, thank you.
All right, great. So OPTIMISE actually stands for Opening the Talent of Special Education in Michigan, and so we're really looking forward to that. Want to let you know that this is really a project that's intended to build statewide capacity. This is not a project that's intended to just build pockets of excellence across the state. We're really looking at system impact for everyone in Michigan. And we are focusing in on attracting into the institutes of higher education, all of the preparation programs, as well as working with the institutes of higher ed on how well are we preparing our candidates coming out to hit the ground running to meet the needs of our current individuals with disabilities in Michigan, and then the attraction strategies. And we have put a huge emphasis on the urban, rural, and suburban. While we know that Wayne Risa has very similar needs as Copper Country up in the UP. They have some distinct differences as well, and so we are very cognizant of that when we're making recommendations between short-term, intermediate, and long-term type of strategies. OPTIMISE, we ended up developing a website. It's a one-stop shop. I will talk to you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But just wanting you to know that we are commissioned by you. This came out in 2021. We didn't start until about 2022. And it comes through the School Aid Act. And thank you for refunding us so that we can continue to work through this project and make recommendations back to you. But it's really looking at wanting to develop a new system in Michigan. We do not want to put Band-Aids on a broken system. We don't want to just do amendments. We want to have honest and transparent conversations around what are the barriers to our current system, and then how do we collectively work toward mitigating those barriers to strengthen Michigan's system. This is just a brief overview of what 94D has asked us to focus in on. I'm not going to read it to you because I'm going to highlight a few of those key areas for you as I go through the PowerPoint presentation. But this is actually what OPTIMISE was asked to do. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the barriers, the work with the higher ed pieces, where we're going to be working and moving ahead in relationship to the attrition rates. We've done some work around the licensing and then some policy change. So we'll give you some examples as it relates to that as well. I mentioned this just a minute ago, that when we made a commitment to this work, that it was really looking at the development of a new system. So how do we build the capacity and the sustainability of really good models across the state that allow us an opportunity to really attract, prepare, and retain. And this is done with a very collaborative effort across the state. A few structural pieces. We have the task force, which 94D has requested or required us to develop a task force of different partners, and it actually highlights, I'll show you some of those in just a minute. And we meet with them quarterly. Representative Granville is on our task force, and thank you for your leadership there as well. And she brings a lot of information to us and hopefully information back to you as well as the work. When we first started, we developed a core team. Those are thought partners. And they meet with us every 2 weeks just to bounce ideas around and to vet the work that we're doing and give us some advice. And that we've developed a number of action teams, and I will run through those with you really quickly as well. So these are just some of the partners that are listed within the task force that actually either attend our task force meetings and are working collaboratively with us. They also have representatives that they have designated to be part of our action teams. So the voice of all these organizations, really are well heard. And you can see Capital Services up there. And thank you to Noah for his continued leadership in helping us move this work forward as well. But lots of strong partnership. This is really an all hands on deck, not something that we can do in isolation. Kathy and I, with the years of experience we have, cannot change the trajectory of the work that needs to be done in Michigan without the help of all of these partners. And we are extremely gracious and pleased to be able to partner with them every day. This is a tough slide for you to see, but you do have a copy of it. Kathy and I really wanted to just briefly share with you a little bit about some of our action team recommendations. And keep in mind that OPTIMISE, the work that we're doing is making recommendations for change. We are not the implementers. And I think your last meeting, Mace and Abby and Ben and Cheryl Marie came in and talked about many of the projects that they are doing that are actually a result of the action team recommendations that were made. But one of the responsibilities that we are asked to do is look at the barriers. We started off with a barrier action team, identified 127 barriers to Michigan's system. We did some influence mapping, and then we chose the top 5 or 6 barriers, and those are what started our action teams. And so we are definitely using that information to drive the work that we're doing. The special ed administrative credentialing, that one Mace has picked up for us. The building leader one for inclusive leadership, Mace has picked up for us, as well as the paraeducator one. So they are implementing the recommendations that are coming out. The teacher credentialing and standards, the State Board of Education just adopted new K-12 standards on May 13th for our special education preparation programs to implement, where we do have consistency across our preparation with much higher standards than what we have had in the past. And we are now in the process of working with MDE and OEE in regards to a new special ed credential as well. So very excited about that. A couple pieces that are still dangling out there, paperwork reduction. You probably have heard many times that paperwork is a significant barrier for our ability to retain our current qualified staff. So we have an action team that came out with some recommendations, and we are in the process of teasing through that and hopefully moving that into implementation as well. And that coincides really closely with the workload caseload. And we can't just base our staffing allocations on just the number of students, but what is the complexity of their need and how are we allocating the appropriate staff time to be able to do that. School psychologist, this is a celebration for Optimize. We did get funded through the Department of Labor to start a new school psych hybrid model. An RFP went out, working very closely with MASP on that one. That came out of the MASP Behavior Action Team. And that's really exciting. The behavior support I'm going to talk to in just a few minutes. And the others were still around implementation. Lastly on this list, we had a work group around compensation. I did have an opportunity to present to MSBO in relationship to recommendations of what are some innovative strategies that they could look at implementing to really help with not only attracting but the retention of our special ed personnel. So we've got a lot of work done in the last few years. Really proud of that work as well. When we started this project, part of our charge was to look at an Elevate the Profession campaign and how do we change the perception of being a special educator in Michigan and what could we do a little bit differently. So we are actually contracting with CR Marketing here in East Lansing. And they have a large social media campaign that they're doing, as well as our one-stop shop website that we've put out, and I'll talk about that. These are the different platforms that you're on. You can see that when we started the media campaign in 2023, what some of those metrics look like. 2024, we just about doubled our visibility through the social media, and then in 2025, a quarter of the way into the year, we're over a third of the way toward the whole 2024. Just want to draw a little bit of attention to Snapchat. We have a very large high school campaign. We know that pulling in career changers is not necessarily the highest retention, so we're doing an outreach to high schoolers, working with high school counselors, looking at dual enrollment programs, looking at career tech education program opportunities. But the 13 to 17-year-olds, if you look that from January 1st of 2025, almost 800,000 impressions on Snapchat following the Optimize information we're putting out there, with close to 17,000 of those high schoolers perusing through our website, looking at what are the special education positions available, what universities offer programs, scholarship and funding opportunities as well. And then we do have a lot of videos, and Representative Glanville's been on some of those. We have a number of people that have. And so we've had over 265,000 views of those videos doing the storytelling. So this is our way of getting information out there, really to promote special ed as a preferred profession and try and bring more people in. This is just our one-stop shop into Optimize. So if you come in and you click, we have 12 professions. It can take you to what the credentialing criteria is, and then, as I said, it takes you to the grants and scholarship opportunities as well. This is just our way of attracting in. We've got the professions. We're really looking at what we're doing to attract into the educator prep programs, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, a very strong campaign around the high school and really pulling them in to us as well. So on our website, as I mentioned, a one-stop shop. You can click on a particular profession. You can look at the map of Michigan to see where the university programs are being offered and all of the rest of the information. And then we actually have a job portal. Within the job portal, there's close to 3,000 positions that are posted. We know that that's an underrepresentation of the number of openings we have in special ed in Michigan. But we have about 14 ISDs that we are not able to pull in because they don't do external postings. So we have reached out to them to pull that information in as well. But you're able to go to this and search by profession, and then it'll show you where all of the openings that we have available. And you can actually click on the detail, the blue button, and it'll take you right to that original posting. So what we're trying to do is build equity with this information. We want to make sure we have all of the postings from the Upper Peninsula as well as the Lower Peninsula so that we have equity with marketing the positions that are available across the state. We did a back-to-school campaign all the way through the UP and showed all the beautiful locations you could live to be able to work up there. So very exciting. So this gets a lot of traction. We look at these metrics every week, every Friday morning. We review through those. This is just one that will show you kind of what we look at from a metrics perspective, who's clicking on what jobs, and, what part of the website that they're actually going to. And then we actually use this information for our social media campaign. So where we have an underrepresentation of postings, then we make sure that we're marketing those as well. So this is just a metric that we review that helps really drive the work that we're currently doing. Special ed workforce. You saw on the original 94D that it talked about the attrition. I think we've met with many of you in your offices and have talked about the absence of real data, supply and demand data in Michigan, or workforce data. Kathy and I have been working with the Data Hub as well as SEPI in trying to look at how do we have a data system that allows us not only to look at what we have that are credentialed and qualified, but where all of the openings are and where the needs are that could drive the improvements in our educator prep programs as well. So we're working with Michigan State University in their EPIC group. We have looked at the Michigan data and reviewed with them, and we are actually looking at a proposed scope of work to actually have them do an 18-month study of our workforce data that could then give us a more accurate picture of what's happening in Michigan to really drive the continuous improvement and the innovative recommendations that we have to make. So this is an early phase right now, but we do need to strengthen Michigan's workforce data system so we have the right information to be able to work from. And then behavior training. This was one of the action teams that I said that I would talk to you about. And we've had some conversation with a few of you. Representative Glanville is familiar with this from being on the task force. This behavior action team, we had over 70 people that probably participated, breaking up into 3 different subgroups and really looking at behavior as being one of the top barriers to our ability to retain our special ed personnel, including paraeducators. Paraeducators said this was one of the greatest challenges that they're currently experiencing within the system. So again, we wanted to look at how do we develop a statewide professional development opportunity that lists, all of the areas of need within that. How do we develop a coaching system in both the ISDs that could help with the locals around the behavioral coaching to really support the implementation of some of that new learning. And then really looking at a statewide system that can pull all of our partners together, including school behavioral health as well as community mental health, the police force, et cetera. This work right now is being done in collaboration with MyLeap. We wanted to make sure that the Part C and the early childhood piece was taken into consideration, not just K-12 within this, but really starting that behavioral support in the early intervention aspect of it. So we're working with MyLeap. We've been working with MAISA, SEILN, MDE. We're all, with Dr. Michelle Harmala. We're also working with Scott Hutchins' division on the school mental health piece of it. MACE has been at the table. So this has been a very collective effort in conversation that everyone has a vested interest in really looking at this piece of it. So we're really hoping to be able to identify a task force that could really look at developing a strong professional development system for Michigan that we could roll out on a statewide basis to try and mitigate the impact of those behaviors, not only from seclusion and restraint, but significant disproportionality, what's happening with our MTSS framework for interventions, the whole gamut, the whole entire piece of it. So this is a piece of information that we will be asking the Appropriations Committee to take a look at within a request. And this goes out a little bit outside the scope of special education because, as Kathy and I have said many times, that over a good percent of our individuals with disabilities in Michigan are spending a good percent of their time in general education. So this is not just a special education location issue, this is an all-ed issue. And how can we really mitigate the impact of that? So we talked a little bit about some of our celebrations. We wanted you just to see. We've had probably close to 500 partners from all of those different organizations at the table with us and from an action team perspective. And it is their voice that are bringing these recommendations forward. It's not the work that Kathy and I are doing. It's definitely a collective voice. But we're very excited about the number of individuals across all the disciplines within Michigan that have partnered with us around the strength of these recommendations and moving that forward. But on behalf of Kathy and I and OPTIMISE, we want to personally thank you for your continued support, not only from a financial perspective and allowing us an opportunity to continue this work that we feel are reaping some great benefits for Michigan, but just your receptiveness to meeting with us in your offices and hearing our stories and the work that we're doing. We're very appreciative of our core team, certainly our task force, NOAA with Capital Services. So it's definitely a collective effort that's gotten us here today, and we would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Kathy, for your presentation. The 127 barriers that were identified, and you've chosen 5 to kind of focus on. Yeah, where can, as a list of those 127?
You should be on our
There-
website.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
And those 127 of them were then grouped. And we influence mapped them to see which barriers had the most impact on other barriers so that we were addressing the ones that ended up having the most power in ability to attract, prepare, and retain.
All right. You mentioned that there's a new special ed credential. It's special ed jobs have been hard to fill. I don't discount the idea that we probably had to upgrade what we're doing, but have we made it harder now to?
So when Kathy and I first started this project, we did a listening tour around the state with everyone, including the institutes. We met with 14 of the institutes of higher education with their preparation programs. And they said that the greatest barrier for them to be able to attract in, but to also get the completers, was the rigorous process of our categorically endorsed credential that we currently have in place. And Kathy and I have been around a long time, and it's been around a long time. They also said that it's extremely challenging them to find student teaching placements. It's a significant barrier. So Michigan has done some significant workarounds to that by having some variations in ISD plans, to try and look at staffing a little differently because the categorical system, has been a hindrance. We're looking at moving this down to, instead of a 5-year program, a 4-year program, but being more intentional with what's being taught. So increasing the rigor around literacy and numeracy as well as behavior. The new K-12 standards, that Gina Gardner and OE helped us get through the State Board of Education will certainly increase the rigor and preparation, and that we're hoping that special ed teachers come out better prepared to meet the diverse needs of learners within our system, and not just from a categorical perspective, because with their programs are not just categorically driven. So we're really hoping that this is going to be a strong attraction strategy for us as well.
All right, thank you. And the 14 ISDs that don't post outside of their system.
Yes.
So what kind of explanation do they give for that?
We just
I
identified.
know that's not your problem, but.
No. But we did identify through CR marketing support that there were certain ISDs that we were not pulling in. And we, as I mentioned before, we want to have an equitable system where we're marketing everyone equally across the state. So they're doing an outreach to those 14 ISDs, offering them an opportunity for free to actually, move their postings over to the OPTIMISE site. So one, we have a better picture of certainly what the demand is across the state, but again, giving an opportunity for us to do that. If people are coming to OPTIMISE and looking, and there's an absence of a particular ISD that's listed there, they're not getting an opportunity to have their job, really be reviewed. So we're doing an intentional outreach to those 14, highly encouraging them to come in. And when I presented at MSBO, they were very surprised by some of that information and went back and talked to their people about that. So
Does that even, again, this isn't your area of expertise, or does that also include job seeker website type things that they don't post their jobs on?
Those, the ISD, some
National
of them,
kinds of things, they don't post these?
I would imagine, I certainly don't know, because
Yeah.
I worked for an ISD that used an outside company for job postings, but those are expensive, and maybe those ISDs are just feeling like they use their own websites and their district's websites, and they're getting enough interest without paying
All right.
for Indeed or, those
Yeah,
ones, yeah.
all right. And then one last question here. The EPIC study that you're talking about, you're working with it, that is different from the current special ed kind of cost task force that,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
That's due, I think next year the report is due.
Yes. We do not have data within our current workforce data that breaks down just special education. So it's been very, very difficult for us to tease out that aspect of it. And so this particular study will be looking at the special education workforce data in all areas across the state. And yes, there will be an additional cost that we will be paying Michigan State to be able to facilitate that study on our behalf, because we have had multiple, we don't have the data available to us. And we really wanted to make sure that we were upholding our 94D responsibilities and looking at particularly the attrition rates. So through lots of interviewing, through our action teams, through lots of conversations, we can speculate on what a lot of the reasons are, but we really don't have the level of detail that we would like to be able to have.
All right.
The other fiscal study that's going on, that's more about how we pay for
Yeah.
special education. Yeah, not the workforce data.
All right,
Yep.
thank you. Minority Vice Chair Glanville.
Thank you. I do have a few questions myself. So, and I just want to thank Kathy and Lori for being here today and really for demonstrating the value of the work that you have done. I think this is it's just fantastic the way you've approached it, the partnerships that you've made, the fact that you've gone out and worked in the field instead of telling the field. It's just all the best practices, all the hallmarks of how we get really good, and you've demonstrated this data and programming in place. And I know that we've seen a lot of positive benefit from the work that you're doing. So I hope that we can continue the partnership or to continue the 94D funding. And with that in mind, I kind of wanted to ask, what does that look like? How long, just to clarify, is 94D yearly, or is that an ongoing? What does that look like?
The original allocation allowed up to a 3-year period, and we started late in the game, so we did have a little bit of carryover that we were able to do. And then the last appropriations allocated $1 million. So when Kathy and I sit down from a budget perspective, and Van Buren ISD is our fiscal agent, so we work very closely with Superintendent Dave Manson there, who's also on our core team. And so we have probably 2 years or so left.
We
that-
may get through
Yeah.
2027.
We may, yeah. So we have a couple more years. And so we greatly appreciate the funding because we had got such great momentum started. And as Representative Glanville said, lots of great partnerships taking place. And in the absence of having, the leadership to really be able to move this forward would have been detrimental and would have put us backwards. So, we really appreciate the continued funding. So we're hoping within the next 2 years, a good % of what our recommendations are that are into implementation, we will have impact data. So right now, we're working with CR Marketing. We have a lot of metrics data, of who's kind of following us, but what we would really like to see is the impact data. So we're working with Gina Gardner and OEE on enrollment trends for higher education. We asked her to separate those that are going in through Grow Your Own, which is not really coming out of an OPTIMISE project, versus maybe the work that we're doing from the social media perspective. We have seen an increase in enrollment. Joe Lubick is from Northern Michigan University is on our task force. And he just reported to us that he's had a pretty significant increase in the learning disabilities endorsement as well as the early childhood endorsement at Northern, to the point where they don't have enough faculty. This is a great issue to have. But those are celebrations, where we are now starting to see an increase. Just real quickly, the reason we're spending so much time on the higher ed piece of it as an attraction is when we started this project, because I live in DC and look at all the national data, Michigan was rated with a 66% decline enrollment in our preparation programs, with the national trend being 38. So we're now looking at the data, we're at about 56% decline. So we're inching ourselves up. So that is some of the impact data that we're currently looking at. But we hope to be able to have more, particularly around the projects that MACE is doing. We know how many paraeducators are being trained. We know how many building leaders are being trained. So we're starting to look at an evaluation system to evaluate that. So hopefully the next time we come back, we're able to report really positive impact data as well.
I just wanted to add, Lori and I are really thrifty. And so I have to, 500 people have come to the table and they have not been paid to do this work. That, to me, is some of the most amazing thing about the work we've done is everybody says, yes, I'll do that. I'll come and talk to you. I'll be in a meeting. I'll be in your action team. And, certainly lots of them are doing it on their work time, but their administrators are releasing them. I mean, we have paid for very, very little to get all this work to the implementation stage, so.
Yeah, that's teachers, right?
Right.
Do it for the kids. That's our pay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to make sure, I would hate to see a program like this, falter here in the last steps and even, would advocate for extending if we need, because I know that we are getting a lot of that great impact data in. And I wanted to ask, I had a question about the 14 ISDs as well. Kind of the same thing. I think you mentioned it, but I just want to clarify, is that primarily a financial issue or a workforce issue for them? Like they just don't have the people, like they just throw it on their own website because they don't have the capacity to put it somewhere else? Is that, I'm just curious what some of those
I think
barriers
Kathy
are.
spoke to that. I think it's multiple. One, it could be a smaller ISD that doesn't have a significant number of postings, so to outsource that for a cost where they feel that they can do it internally would be very different. I do think cost definitely is part of it. So we're just trying to develop the awareness. And we're very gracious to see our marketing that they're willing to make a commitment to helping those ISDs upload their data and show them how to upload their data at no cost.
Great.
So, this is a marketing firm that's there to help us, but they're seeing such value in what we're doing, and they're helping us to identify where we have barriers in the system, and to have them be able to step up and try and bridge those gaps for us on a volunteer basis is commendable as well.
Great. And just one final question about the teacher prep stuff. So I know that there were new guidelines for special ed, and as you mentioned, trying to condense that program down so it fits into a 4-year model with all the necessary rigor. I've done student-teacher mentoring in the past, and I was always surprised that special ed teachers are required to do student teaching in a SPED classroom and in a gen ed classroom, right? So they have 2 placements, so it's actually a year of student teaching. And gen ed teachers only have to do a gen ed classroom. So I find that curious when we have so many students that are being mainstreamed and are part of just the, typical school day, that our gen ed teachers don't have that same experience or training. Was there any suggestion to address that piece of it as well? I know you're doing a lot of training with administrators and paraeducators, so how are we getting to your gen ed classroom teachers?
So working with Gina Gardner, we looked at the experimental model that is out there that can be applied and approved through OEE. So many of our universities are doing that, and with the experimental model, they're eliminating the general education certification aspect of it. So people are going through the 4-year track just to focus in on the special education preparation, but as I mentioned earlier, with a higher emphasis on the literacy and numeracy and really good teaching methodology and pedagogy, coming out, being able to hit the ground running for all learners. We're working very closely with Gina and OEE on the general ed certification piece of it, and how are we looking at making sure that the general ed personnel that are coming out have some coursework and opportunities to have knowledge and skills to be able to work with the diverse needs of our individuals with disabilities as well. They're making some huge trends within that. We also had conversation with our credentialing action team that did we want to make a recommendation within Michigan to have a dual certification where they are prepared together and we don't have separate preparation programs. As we mentioned, how many of our individuals with disabilities are in general ed under the leadership of a general education teacher. So those are, thank you for asking the question, Representative. Those are certainly questions that we're engaging in, and a piece that I think Michigan can take a look at. How are we working closely within OEE between special ed certification and gen ed, making sure that we're optimizing preparation for everyone to be able to meet the
I
needs
see
of our
what you did there.
individuals.
You're optimizing.
We're optimizing.
All right, thank you.
Representative Markkinen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you familiar with, thank you all for being here today, that's great. Are you familiar with Wisconsin's system of certification for special ed?
A little bit. So when I had an opportunity to work at OSEP, we did take a look at that. But when we started with our credentialing action team, we intentionally didn't put other states' models in front of them because we didn't want them to just cut and paste something. We wanted them to customize a model that would be best for Michigan. So I was very intentional. They ask me every day, Lori, can you just tell us what other states are doing? Well, they can Google it and look. But we wanted to make sure that Michigan was really customizing something that was going to be imperative for us. In the end, we did look at some of those other models
Yeah,
as
'cause,
well.
You know, I had the pleasure of having a graduate student as a student teacher in one of my programs, and, you know, they were getting certified in 5 or 6 different areas in their graduate school. I haven't seen an EI teacher in the UP in probably 20, 30 years. You know,
I know.
we can't handle everything with LD certification.
Correct.
We have to have other areas.
We're hoping that with the new credentialing, when it finally gets through the Mars rule process and all of that, we'll equip all special ed teachers to address all the diverse needs, particularly of high-incidence students. And if we pair that with what we're proposing about behavior training, so that we're not just having EI teachers or LD teachers, we're having special ed teachers that are fully equipped, because we know our classrooms that they serve have multiple disabilities
Right.
in their classrooms. So we need to train them in that way. And we know that there are students with learning disabilities that have behavior issues that currently EI teachers might have the skills, but they're not teaching. So that's our hope here.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, I had the luxury and the pleasure of working in a program, too, that all the special ed teachers had their own AA. And when I was first introduced to the program, I thought, oh, they're really lying to me. And the next day, she showed up. And the AA, the administrative assistant, did all the paperwork, sent out all the mailings, so that special ed teacher could, you know, really focus on instruction, which made incredible difference.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're doing all that mailing and doing all the short-term and long-term goals, and
It's the
When-
paperwork reduction that we're trying to address to increase opportunities for instruction.
We
Yeah,
probably should have
that'd
had you on our paperwork reduction action
Yeah.
team, right?
yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Representative Markkinen moves to excuse absent members. There being no objections, the motion prevails by unanimous consent, and there being no further business, meeting is adjourned.